Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF, Bava Metzia Tzadi Beis. We are holding out the Mishnah, which is 5 lines off the top of the Amud. Says the Mishnah, Oichel Poel Kishus. Afilu b'dinar. A worker is allowed to partake, he's allowed to snack off the food that he's working with, as we learned. And even if the kishus, the squash that he's eating, is worth a ton, is worth a dinar, a huge amount. Or kisevas, or a date. Afilu b'dinar, even if he's eating a dinar worth of produce. There's no limit to how much he can take. That is the Tanna Kama's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, he says no. There is a cap, there is a maximum. Lo yechal poel yaser al schorei. He shouldn't be eating more than his actual salary. Okay, so if he's making $100 a day, he can't be eating more than that. I think more will explain the reason for this. However, the Chachamim disagree. There's no limit. There's no maximum. He can just eat and eat, even if the amount that he eats exceeds his actual salary. But there's a catch. We instruct him, we advise him to keep it to a minimum, to keep it within a reasonable amount. We instruct him, we advise him. Look, don't overeat. Because if you get a reputation as an overeater, you're going to be slamming doors in your face. You're going to be having a hard time getting employment. Asks the Gemara Chachamim Hainu Tanna Kama. So this last line, the Chachamim's opinion, right? That meant to discourage this fellow from eating so much. Isn't it pretty much a repeat of the Tanna Kama? Because they're saying, look, strictly halacha, you can eat as much as you want. We advise you otherwise, but in terms of your real allowance, you're allowed. And that's exactly like the Tanna Kama, who said that there's no limit. So why mention the Chachamim as a separate opinion? Isn't it pretty much like the Tanna Kama? No, says the Gemara, there is some differences here. For instance, Ava Melamdin, right? This point that Chachamim raised, that we're meant to discourage him, that's their opinion. The Tanna Kama less, Le Melamdin. Tanna Kama holds we don't discourage him. The Torah allows it, we have no right to interfere. The Rabbanan is no Melamdin. Rabbanan say no. We can give him some constructive advice. Sure, you're allowed to, but keep it reasonable. So that would be the machlekes. Another way is Iboy Seima Ikebenayu Rav Asi. That there is a case where there would be a difference of opinion between Tanna Kama and the Chachamim, as per Rav Asi's halacha. Damar Rav Asi, afilu lo sachroi ela livtzer eshkel echad oichlei. So Rav Asi says, even if he was only hired, you hired a worker to pick one cluster of grapes. Guess what? That worker can now turn around and snack off that cluster and completely consume it. Even though that's all he's meant to do today. He picks it and eats it. So that would be the opinion of the Tanna Kama. There's no limit. Right? Whereas the Chachamim say no. Look, he can eat as much as he wants, but not to this extent. I mean, this is going a bit too far. If he was hired, to work all day, he's going to pick 100 clusters, sure. You can eat and eat, even if the amount that you eat, the total amount exceeds your salary, right? But not to the point that you can eat that one cluster that you're picking, right? Because you have to leave something over for the balabayis, right? So that would be one way to explain the machlokes. Tanna Kama says okay, Chacham say no. Ve'amar Rav Asi, and there's actually another din of Rav Asi, which again could very well be the subject of dispute between the Tanna Kama and our Mishnah, who says it's okay, whereas the Chachamim would disagree. V'amar Rav Asi, afilu lo batzar ela eshkel echad oichlei. Suppose you hired him for a full day of work, okay? Pick my harvest my grapes all day. He's holding at the first cluster, and he's already getting hungry. According to Tanakama, he can eat it. Even though he has yet to deliver something to the Balabayas. And the Chachamim would disagree on that. First you have to serve the Balabayas, pick something for him, and then you can start snacking. So we have two halachos of Rav Asi, and perhaps these two halachos are subject to our dispute of our Mishnah. Now, why does Rav Asi have to mention both halachos, which are pretty much, it's almost a repetition. They're both based on the same concept, that the fellow is taking that cluster and fully eating it. Utzricha, there's a point in mentioning both. There's a chiddush in each one. Why? The Ashmin and Hakamaisa had Rav Asi only put forth the first halach, that a fellow was hired strictly to pick one cluster of grapes, and Rav Asi says the worker can turn around and consume it personally. I would say, you know why that's true? Mishum deloyikal mesav, because there is really nothing else to place in the owner's containers. This is all he was charged to pick, right? Deloyikal mesav lekelo shabalabayis. That explains why, right? There's nothing. You can't tell him, okay, first give the balabais and then take. This is the only thing I'm picking today. But in the other case where he's hired for a full day's work, he's got to pick 100 clusters. There'll be enough to go around for himself, for the owner. So perhaps the proper way, the proper sequence is give the owner, first provide for him, and then snack off. First provide, and then you can eat. Comes the second halacha of Rav Asi? No. You picked one cluster, go ahead and eat it right away. Now, on the other hand, if Rav Asi would have only mentioned the second case, he was hired for a full day's work, he's going to pick 100 clusters. As soon as he picks the first one, he gets hungry, he can eat it. You know why? Because ultimately, he's going to be providing for the farmer as well. So he's going to fulfill the pasuk which says, right, don't put it into your containers, put it into the owner's containers, right? That's the pasuk, al-kali chalei, which we learned the other day, indicates to us that he's actually providing for the owner. He's picking and storing for the owner, right? So you can ultimately fulfill this concept, as he's going along throughout the day, because he's going to pick more than what he eats. But in case number one, where all he's doing is one cluster, he's never going to be able to fulfill this concept of providing for the owner. So perhaps he's not entitled to eat. That's why Rav Asi informs us in both cases, no issue. Okay, so again, the kasha was Chachamim and Tanakama pretty much saying the same. So one pshat was, do we discourage him? The other pshat was, Rav Asi's chidushim are subject to machlekes. Here comes another pshat. Iboy is saying, Ike b'nai Rav. The machlekes between Tanakama and Chachamim in our Mishnah revolves around what Rav told us. Dama Rav. Rav says, Matzasi, one day I discovered a hidden scroll. Because in those days, Rashi says, they wouldn't actually write down halachos of Torah Shabbat of the oral law. It was prohibited. So if a Talmud would hear something interesting, something that he was afraid of forgetting, he would quietly, record it and put it away, so it should not, become a public, spectacle, right? Because they couldn't formally write things down, but apparently, privately, informally, as per need, it was okay. So basically, I discovered Matzasa Megillah Starim. I found this Megillah Starim Beit Rebbe Chia in the Shiva of Reb Chia, and guess what it said? Because of and in it was said as follows. Isi ben Yudah, he tells us, Ki Sabi became Re'echa. And the pasuk describes this fellow coming in and snacking off the food. It's not necessarily a worker. Bevias kol adam akasim v'daber. Anybody could just walk in to his friend's vineyard and start picking grapes and eating it. V'amar Rav. So Rav responded to this halacha, lo shavak isi. The author of this scroll, right, Isi ben Yehuda, is not leaving anybody any livelihood. Lo shavak isi chayi means livelihood. The whole berry, if anybody, basically, you can just go and steal everybody, right? Rav Ashi. So this is a sort of a stumped riddle, like what's going on? Rav Ashi. Amrisa l'shmata kamei Rav Kahana. I propose the following explanation to make it, plausible. to Rav Kahana, and I posited as follows: Dilma, perhaps what he meant to say is ba'isen b'sudasam. We're not speaking about random people coming and picking grapes and running. They're coming to work. They're not hired workers, but they're volunteering. They're walking in, they're picking some grapes for you, and they're eating as they're going along. Ba'isen b'sudasam, they're working as they're eating. Da'av devachlu, they're working and eating at the same time, right? Work for food. So perhaps that's what he meant. So it makes sense because they're providing a service, and as they're eating, as they're working, they're eating. But Rav Kahana wasn't satisfied with this pshat. Even if you say they're doing some work, it's not a good deal. I mean, it's not good business. Because the person prefers to hire formal workers, work all day and snack a little bit, rather than having random people running through his vineyard, eating and picking and eating and finishing it all up. To hire proper workers who eat 2-3 times a day and that's it, right? And pick his his grapes, as opposed to everybody running through and consuming his stuff. So the Gemara is proposing that perhaps this idea of isi, to allow even a stranger, is subject to the machlokes in our Mishnah, right? The Tanakama says only a worker can eat, as we see in the words of the Mishnah. Eichel poel kishus, only a worker, an actual hired worker, whereas a chacham say anybody. And how do we see that in the Chachamim? Because the Chacham say that a hired worker can eat an amount which exceeds his salary. Chamatir. So perhaps even a non-worker, right? It's not dependent upon salary. And this would be in line with isi. So that's the latest suggestion in explaining our machlokes in our mission. So bottom line is, Rav Eliezer Chisma says a person cannot eat more than his salaried amount. Tanakama says it is okay. And likewise the Chachamim. And we found several nafkamina, several points which perhaps would be subject to dispute between Chachamim and Tanakama. To what extent do we allow the fellow to overeat? Okay, here comes a new shaila, a fundamental question. We allow the workers to eat as they're picking, as they're harvesting, right? The question was posed as follows. How do we frame it? Poyel, when a worker snacks off the food, is it misheloi? Is it by his own, sort of entitlement? It's like part of his contract. It's part of his salary. He gets paid X amount, right? Plus lunch. It's part of his salary. Of course, it was dictated by the Torah. But in terms of, how to package a deal, it's packaged in a salary form. It's included in the salary. Right? No. The other hand says no. It's granted to him by Shamayim, by Hashem. It's a grant. It's a bonus unrelated to salary. It's a schus that the Torah grants him. It's not something which is part and parcel of the salary arrangement. So it's either salary or a grant. Amanaf Kamina, what's the difference between this or that? Says the Gemara, the Amar Tnu L'ishti Ubanai. Suppose the laborer tells the employer, you know what, I'm not going to take anything, but give it to my wife and kids. Whatever I was meant to eat, right? Let's estimate whatever it was. Give it to the kids. Does he have the entitlement of doing that? So now it depends on these two perspectives. If we shall say that his right to eat is incorporated into his salary arrangement, then he has a right to transfer that to his kids. Just like a salary, he can transfer to his kids, right? You give them the food as well. But if it was granted by Shamayim, it's a personal gift, personal grant. You can't. It's non-transferable, right? The Torah gave it to him, but not to his wife and kids. So which way is it? Is it mishaloi, Is it part and parcel of his salary arrangement, or is it Mishal Shamayim, a special bonus granted by the Torah? Tashma. Let's try to figure this out based on our Mishnah. Mishnah says, Oichel poel kishas afilu b'dinar. Koiseves afilu b'dinar. There's no limit to the amount that he eats, right? Iyamas mishloihu oichel. Asks the Gemara, now, suppose if it's part of his salary, how can you say that he eats this much? Imagine, Oiger b'danka. He was hired for a danka, which is a small amount of money, a sixth of a zuz. Imagine a guy is getting $1 a day and he's eating $6 of food. That doesn't make sense, right? Achal bezuz, how can you say it's part of his salary? How could his lunch exceed his total salary amount? So apparently it's Mishal Shamayim. It's not related to his salary. It's just a gift from heaven, which is unrelated to his salary amount. Asks the Gemara, but that wouldn't either work. So what do you suggest? It's a gift from heaven, but it still wouldn't make sense. It's still totally out of proportion. Soif. Ultimately, he was hired for a donkey. He's going to eat a zuz. I mean, how could you suggest that Hashem allows him to, So apparently you have to say that Rahman Azachile, that the Torah gave him a schus, unrelated to the salary amount. The two things are totally unrelated. Hachanam is Rahman Azachile. So even if you say that it's Mishaloi, which means that it's considered part and parcel of his salary arrangement, well, how could it be? How could his lunch exceed his salary? Well, that's the Torah said. Torah says that he's allowed to do that. Right? The Torah sort of forced the employer to incorporate this clause into the salary, irrespective of the amount. So basically, we don't really have a conclusion on this question at this point. Tashmai comes another attempt at a right. Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, he disagrees. He says, no, he can't eat more than what he's making off his work. The Chachamim say it's okay. What's the machlekes about? Perhaps it revolves around this very question. What is the root of this entitlement? Machlekes revolves around this question. Rabbi Yehuda Kessler says the achila is an element of his salary. So you cannot suggest that it can exceed his salary. Rashi says the ein toisefes meruba leikar. A bonus never exceeds the base, right? So therefore you limit it, you're capped. Umar Sava Mishal Shamayim Oichel. Chachamim say it's from Hashem. Says Rashi, V'zachi leRachmana. It's a gift from heaven, unrelated to his salary amount. Loi, no, the Kuli Am Mishaloi Oichel. Perhaps everybody holds it's Mishaloi. V'acha b'ker nafshcha k'miflki. The question revolves around how to learn the pasuk. So you're meant to allow the fellow. Right? You eat kenafshecha. What does the kenafshecha mean? Marasava kenafshecha b'davar shemois nafshi olav. Rabbi says that the Torah is sort of giving a reason. Why is he allowed to eat kenafshecha? Because look, he's being mois nefesh. Rashi says he sacrificed, puts himself in danger. He climbs up a big ladder, up on the roof, up on the tree. He's being mois nefesh for you. So we learn from here that the snacking allowance, it must be commensurate to the sacrifice that he's making. He's sacrificing for this type of salary, right? And that's how much you can eat. You can't exceed. That's what we learn from kenafshecha. Umar Sava kenafshecha. Rabbanim disagree. We apply it to a totally different halacha. The Torah is telling you that the employer, if he muzzles his employee, if he doesn't let him eat, although he's not allowed to do that, but he's not getting a lav, he's not going to get malchus. Kenafshecha, we compare it to himself. Torah is addressing the employer, just like you yourself, if you decide to withhold and not to eat. Nobody's going to be after you for that, right? If you muzzled yourself, you withheld your potter. The same if you did it to the worker, your potter from malchus. Okay, so it's a special halacha unrelated to the amount of food that he's eating. Tashmai comes another attempt at a raya to clarify this point. Is it contractual or is it heavenly? Nazir she'amar tnu li'ishti ubanai. So a nazir who vowed to withhold from wine, from grapes, So he's harvesting grapes, and he knows he can't eat, so he's transferring that privilege to his wife and kids. Here, feed my wife and kids. Ein shemiloi, we don't accept that condition. We can't. We're not committed to that. The balabais cannot be forced to do that. Okay, that's the price. Now, one second. If a worker eats as part of his salary arrangement, why can't he relegate that to his kids? Why can't he transfer that right to his kids? If the point would be that he's given that right from Shemayim, so Hashem knows he's a Nazir, he has no right to eat grapes. But if it's contractually committed, so just like he gets a salary, he gets these grapes, he can transfer it to his kids. You're right. Al Pidin, he could, but there's a special knas, a special takana. We don't really want a Nazir being involved in a grapevine. Hasam mishum leich, go away. I'm reading Nil-Zero, you tell the Nazir, schar. Take the long cut, the long route, around and around. Get away. Don't get close to a vineyard. So we want to discourage him from being involved, so therefore we don't allow him to make any deals. Ta'ashmai comes another right. The fellow harvesting, whatever, he says, you know what, transfer the food to my kids. We're not obligated to do so. Why? Once again, the same question. If this commitment is personal, between himself and his employer, why can't he compel the owner to transfer that to his kids? Says the my poil nazir. Once again, the poil here is speaking about a nazir, we're speaking grapes. We want to keep him away, so we don't want to conform to his conditions. Vatanya nazir, vatani poil. What do you mean? But here, the Bryce had changed. Earlier it said nazir, here it says a regular worker. Apparently it's not a nazir. Well, midi gabedade tanyan. Perhaps this Bryce had chose to refer to a nazir with the word poil, because the two Bryces, the previous and this one, were not learned. Who said they were learned next to each other, meaning the same time in the base medrash, that the difference in language would indicate a difference in circumstance. Perhaps both Bryces mean the same exact thing, and each Tana in his own place referred to him in a different way. So once we have established that it's a nazir, we understand that we don't want to encourage this type of behavior, and therefore we don't conform to his conditions. Tashmai comes another right. Once again, we have a worker stipulating that he wants his food transferred to his family. We don't do it. The pasuk says, you can't. You could snack, but you can't pack up your bags with the owner's material and take it home. So likewise, you can't transfer it to your kids. Well, what do you mean? If it's mishel atzma, if it's personal, if it's contractual, why not? It's a privilege, a right like anything else. He's entitled to that food, whether he eats it or his family eats it. So perhaps we'll suggest that once again we're speaking about a nazir, which has his own restrictions. So why does the Bryce provide a reason based on the pasuk? That wouldn't be the reason for a nazir. It's the special takana, the gzeira, right? The reason is because we want to keep the nazir away, not because the Torah doesn't allow it. And you're right, that would be the real reason. The Bryce is simply sort of using a pasuk which applies to a regular worker, because the Bryce happened to start with the word poil, so it used a pasuk which speaks about a regular worker, not just a nazir, and provides a reason which sort of covers every worker. But in reality, we're speaking about a nazir, and the real reason is because we want to discourage this type of enterprise. And the pasuk that's brought is just sort of like a smachta, we call it, a sort of a hint. But the real reason is midrabanan. Tashmai comes another attempt at a right. A fellow hires somebody to lay out the figs, dry them up. So at this early stage, it's not yet a finished product, it's not yet chayv in maser, which allows the worker to snack off it. But let's say the worker decides to forego his snack. He says instead, I want to add. I want not only I should snack off the food, I want to entitle my kid as well. Or I want my kid to eat instead of me. Okay, so either way, right? Either he's adding him on to the contract or he's substituting for his father. So now, who the worker himself can snack off these figs and he's still exempt from Maser because, as Rashi says, the Torah is the one granting him the right to eat this. He's not purchasing it. It's like, you know what it's like, says Rashi? Like leke, shikha, upeya, all those items which belong to the poor people. They don't have to do the master. They're not buying anything. But if his son snacks off the food, that's already like a purchase. If his son eats, he's chayiv and maser. Rashi says, you know why? It's like he purchased something. Like when you buy something which isn't yet fully finished, the fact that the act of purchasing grants it special prominence and chashivus and makes it like a finished product, considered like a done deal, and it's chayiv and maser. Okay, so that's the price. Let's analyze the price in light of our discussion. Now, if the initial right to eat is considered contractualized, right? That's the first way of looking at this whole thing. So let's say he includes his son in the deal. Why is he chayiv and maser? Right? Look, the worker himself, despite the fact that it's considered like contractualized, he's still potter. It's not considered a purchase because we see the Torah says that you potter from maser. Rashi brings a pasuk, you potter from maser. So even if he decides to include his son, it shouldn't change the equation, right? He sort of enhanced his contract. He expanded his contract. You're right. When a Torah you potter from maser, it's a question of appearance. It looks to people like, since he articulated, clearly stipulated that he wants his son involved, it looks like he's doing a personal deal, a personal purchase, in which case it looks like he bought it, and with the Rabbanan we require the maser to be separated. Tashma comes another way. He hired somebody to do malacha, to work with his netaravai, the fourth year growth. So the fourth year fruit is no longer erlo, it's edible, but you have to take it to your shalayim, right? Or at least redeem it in the meantime. So the workers who are dealing with this material can't eat off it. But if you didn't instruct them beforehand, right? So if they knew in advance, so it's their issue, right? But if he didn't tell them, they're hit by surprise. Look, hey, it's off limits, we can't eat it. So he has no right to do that. He's forced to redeem, to be paida, to remove the kedusha from whatever they're going to eat. He feeds them. That's the price. Now, if we're going to learn like the second way, that the entitlement of a worker is based on shamayim, so why is he forced to provide for them in this case? Isura loy zachi l'rachmana. The fact is, it's asur. If it's coming from the Torah is the one giving you the right. The Torah, I guarantee you, Torah does not give you the right to eat something which is forbidden. So why is he responsible? You're right. But the problem is that since they're totally being hit by surprise, like a mistaken transaction, they have a right to say, look, it's not what we had in mind when we took the job. And therefore he has to provide. Amos safe. Let's move on to the second part of the price. Nisparsu igulav. So let's say he had these igulim, these pressed circles of pressed figs. And what happened was they sort of fell apart, and these fellows were hired to stick them back together. Or he had his wine barrels that, the caps popped off, and he hired the workers to reseal them. So these materials have already been fully processed. They've gotten to the point of a gemar malacha. They're chayiv and maser, in which case we learned that a poel has no right to snack off these things. Right? It's only pre-gemar malacha, but this is already too far gone in the process. It's a finished product. They can't snack off these materials. But that's only if they knew what they were getting themselves into. But if he didn't tell them that it was already finished, ma'aser ma'achila, so now he's forced to feed them. First he has to take off the maaser as required, then he has to feed them. Because they can claim, look, this is totally a surprise for us. Asks more the same question as before. If the whole idea of eating is because Hashem is giving them the Torah, is giving them a right, so why is the employer forced to do the master and feed them? Isura, once again, we should say the same thing. It's forbidden food for them. Isura lo yizachal rachman. The Torah didn't give them the right to eat this. So perhaps here as well we can say the same as before, because they can say it's unfair, we didn't realize. It looks like, you tricked them. Well, that could explain the case of the figs that came apart. He hired them to glue them together, right? To stick them together. They can think that this is the first time it's happening, right? They didn't know that they were already stuck together and it was already finished and it came apart. They're thinking this is the first time, so it's still pre-Gemar Malach. And therefore they're thinking that they're going to eat, and now you're catching them by surprise because you're telling them, well, it's too late, it's already been there, done that, and now you're just redoing it. So they have a time of Mekach Tos. But in the case where he's just trying to reseal his barrels, I mean, they know wine in a barrel is considered a finished product. Of course they're not going to eat. My Mekach Tos, how could they complain on it? They're fully aware that it's finished product, it's tevel, there's master requirement. Rav Sheshes no. It doesn't just mean they got unsealed. They got tripped back into they got spilled back into the pit. So when he hired them, he didn't tell them that it was already in a barrel. So they're thinking it's the first time it's coming from the wine pit into the barrel. Okay, so they're thinking it wasn't yet finished. It wasn't yet fully processed. It wasn't yet nigmar malachta. And therefore they're expecting food. Asks the Gemara, but even when once it got to the wine pit, that should be considered, that's sufficient for Gemar Malacha. So once they knew that, then they knew there's no eating. Vatani yain share the bur. Tanakama says once the wine comes from the wine press and drips into the vat, the pit, that's called Gemar Malacha. Well, it says the Rabbi Kiva, we're going like Rabbi Kiva, the Amar Mashik Kape. It's only considered a finished product when you skim, once the wine, once the juice ferments and there's psilus and some residue floating on top, and you skim that off. That's when it's called a finished product. And they had no clue that we're holding at that point. He calls them up, says, look, I got wine in my pit, I got to bottle it. They're thinking, okay, it's still before this stage, and they can drink from it. So now they're caught by surprise. Because they can claim to him, we had no clue that you're holding at that late stage. But he can tell them, look, it's your issue. You should investigate. You should have asked. You should have figured. Maybe I already skimmed the wine. So it's their fault. And so it's the Gemara, we're speaking about in a place where the worker, the person, the nugget, who bottles the wine, who draws the wine out of the pit, he's the one that skims. They're thinking, okay, we'll hire it to bottle. Apparently, it's not yet a finished product. Another teretz, how this could have, how the misunderstanding could have been generated. Once Zvid presented this brisa with the very Raishia, a brisa from Raishia, in the basement of Raishia. Okay, so Zvid presented a brisa from Raishia, this medrash, which says like this: what is considered gemar malacha? What's considered the finishing stage of yayin? Mishiyer the bar kape. Once it's spilled into the trickles into the pit and it's skimmed. Rabbi Kiva Omer no mishiyishla b'chaviyos. That's still too early to be considered gemar malacha. Rather, once it's in the barrels, and then after a while, when the residue, the lees, is separated, skimmed or whatever, separated off the wine. She says, "Miktsas shmor and koifan mal." Some of that residue floats on. So that, before they actually seal the bottles, they remove whatever visible residue there is. That's Rabbi Akiva's idea of, that's his opinion regarding Gemar Malacha. So if we're going to work with that point, that Gemar Malacha is only at this very late stage in the game, let's go back to that case where you hired them because his barrels were unsealed, they wanted to reseal them, even if they're not back in the pit, they're sitting in the barrels. They can still claim that we figured it's still at the pre-finishing process. The Amr, they tell him, we had no clue the mashli that you already skimmed off the residue. But he can tell them, look, you should have figured, you should have thought, maybe, perhaps, right? Maybe it was done. Answer is, the as ba'astra, who is sharako mashli. We're talking about in a place where typically the one who seals the barrels, he's the one that cleans them up and skims them off. So they're figuring that it's still before Gemar Malacha, and they're going to be entitled to a snack, and therefore he has to provide. Okay, here comes another attempt at a raya. Again, the question is, the entitlement of achila for a poil, is it mishal atzmai? Is it a personal thing? Is it like part of his contract? Or is it mishal shamayim, a bonus from heaven? Tashma. We have a Mishnah coming up very soon. Koitzitz Adam. Koitzitz means that he wants money in lieu of this meal. So, for your own work, you can stipulate, you can say, look, I'm going to work today, and instead of taking lunch, add $5 to my total salary. You can do the same for his family member. Let's say your older son or daughter are working for this fellow, so the father who's getting their salary can stipulate the same. Look, they'll skip lunch, add to the salary. Or he has a Jewish maid or a servant, he can stipulate the same. They're going to work for you today, $100 plus add the $5 bonus in lieu of the lunch. So they're going to withhold, they're not going to have that lunch, add it to the salary. Or on account of his wife. So in all these cases, it's legal. Why? These people are mature, they're intelligent, and if they agree, then it's okay. But you can't do the same stipulation for underage people who don't really have intelligence. You can't do it on behalf of your young son and daughter who are working for this fellow. Or young eved or shivcha. Nor can you stipulate to deprive your animal of its feed and add to the rental fee instead, because in all these they don't have proper das to consent. So that's the mission. Because the Gemara at this point figures, we're discussing a father or a husband who's a responsible fellow. He's providing for these people's sustenance. He's providing them with their meals. So technically he has a right to take all their, whatever they earn. Their earnings go to him because he's supporting them. So now, the Mishnah says when it comes to Ketanim, you can't do this. So that's all very good and well if Mishal Shamayim O'echel, a worker, is entitled because of Shamayim. And that explains why the father cannot interfere. The boss can't interfere with that. He can't make the stipulation because the entitlement comes from Shamayim. So he has no say in that matter. He can't deprive them of their food, of their meal, because that was granted to them minas shamayim. However, if we take the other approach, that this food entitlement is sort of an integral part of one's salary. So just like the father or the boss or the husband, whatever, is entitled to their salary because he's supporting them, so this is part and parcel of the salary. Why can't he incorporate this into the salary? Look, forego your lunch by this fellow and instead add to the salary. Ketanim nami nokatzlu. Even if they're ketanim, you can make the same stipulation. My skin was speaking she'ein malam rezonis. He's not a fellow who's providing for them. He's not supporting them. Therefore, he has no right to do this. Well, if that's the case, and even if they're gedolim, they're adults. Right? Does he have to force them into this deal? Gedolim biyad become machli. If they're adults, if they're consenting, that's fine. Okay, so that's the mission. But now we have a contradiction. V'atana, Rabbi Yehuda presented a brisa with one difference. A person can make this stipulation that we spoke about on behalf of himself, if he's the one working, or his wife. But not on account of his animal. He can do it for his adult kids, not for his young children. Okay, so far so good, right? So far it's fully matching to the Mishnah we had a minute ago. But here comes the difference. When it comes to the Eved and the Shivcha, right? Oh, so Eved and Shivcha, we're speaking is Knanim, right? Non-Jewish slaves, okay? Non-Jewish slaves and maidservants. Beng Doilam Beg Tanim. Apparently the Mishnah before is also speaking about the same case, okay? So here the Brisa says, when it comes to the Eved and the Shivcha, you can make this Katzitza stipulation, right? Forego the food, instead add to the salary. Beng Doilam Beg Tanim, whether they're adults or underage. In contrast to the Mishnah, which says that when they're Tanim, you can't do that. How do we reconcile this apparent contradiction? So now we're going to make several attempts, which are going to revolve around, these two perspectives, these two approaches that we're entertaining here, right? Is it Mishal Loi? Is it Mishal Shamayim? Okay, let's see. My lab. Okay, we're going to assume at this point, Idvili, both the Mishnah, which says you can't stipulate this type of condition for youngsters, and the Brisa, which says you could for the young, Eved and Shivcha. In both cases, the owner, the boss, is providing for them. He's supporting them otherwise. The machlokes between Mishnah and Brisa revolves around this very question. The Mar Savar Mishaloy Oichel. The Mishnah speaking. Sorry, the Brisa speaking that Mishaloy Oichel, the Achila of a Poel, is connected to the salary, in which case over here it goes to the boss who's supporting them, so he can be meichel on it, he can forego it. Umar Savar Mishal Shamayim Oichel. The Mishnah says it's Minash Shamayim, so it's not given to the owner's discretion. So apparently our shaila is machlok between the Mishnah and Brisa. Loi, not necessarily, says the Gemara. The Kul Yam Shlo Yoichel, perhaps everybody considers the achila as part and parcel of one's salary. Well, and the answer is like this. How do we explain the Mishnah and the Brisa? The Mishnah is speaking b'she'ein malan mezoinas, where the owner, the boss, is not supporting these fellows, so he has no right to have any say in their food schedule, because he's not supporting them in any case. But the Brisa, which allows it, is speaking of malan mezoinas, he is supporting them. So basically, it all goes to him now, and therefore he can forego it. Asks the Gemara of Maya Kimta. So how have you established that the Brisa is speaking v'malan mezoinas, and this fellow, in the case of the Eved, he's the boss. In the case of the kids, he's the father. He's fully supporting these individuals. V'malan mezoinas. If that's the case, so why are we limiting this to the avadim ktanim? Yeah, you can do that, but the kids, his own kids, if they're being put to work, if they're ktanim, he has no say in the matter. Yachik ktanim nami nokazlu. Even if they're his kids, let him do the same deal. Answers the Gemara, no. Kids are different. Sarayu de b'nayu b'itoy. Remember, withholding, depriving them, is also a tsar. They see all this food and they can't partake. That's tsar, that discomfort. When it comes to the avodim, he has a right to withhold it. He has a right to deprive them, because money is money. But when it comes to his kids, sarayu de b'nayu b'itoy aktanim, Loi zachi l'rachman, even though there's youngsters and he's supporting them, but if there's tsar involved, Torah does not give him that right. Says the Rabbi Yehuda. So once again, how are we establishing the Mishnah? Mishnah speaking b'she'ein malul and mezonis, where he's not supporting them. So therefore, when it comes to the Eved, right, he has no right when they're kana. Well, hanichal mandam, and that works according to the Shita, which says, Eina Rav Yachal loymar le'Eved asayimi be'nizancha. A slave owner cannot tell his Eved, look, I want you to work for me, I'm not supporting you. Go find, go collect, right? So you can't do that, and that's fully in line with what we're saying. Shopper. Now it makes sense. So since he's not supporting them, he has no right. to deprive him of their meal. But according to the other opinion, which we discuss over there in Ksubais and Gittin, that an owner has a right. It's not very nice of him, but he has a right to do that. Hey, work for me and then support yourself. So Michael Amema, so how do we explain the Mishnah? Even if he's not supporting, he should have a right to stipulate the conditions of this contract. Elo says, "More, you're right. Idi v'idi b'she'ein madl and mezonis." Both the Mishnah and the Brisa are speaking where he's not supporting them. But Machlekes revolves around this very point, whether he has a right to force them to work without support. The Mar Sava Yachil, the Brisa says he has a right to do that. Mar Sava Eni Yachil, the Mishnah says he can't. And therefore, he can't deprive the Ketanim of their mezonis. Asks the Gemara, Rabbi Yechon Amar Yachil, according to Rabbi Yechon, who holds that an owner can, a boss can, a slave owner can do this. Yachil Rav. So basically what you're saying is, Shavak Mas Nissen, Vavat Kebraisa. So basically in the equation over here, he's going to be abandoning, so to speak, the Mishnah, ignoring the Mishnah and going like the Brisa, which is unusual that you would pass on like a Brisa, which holds a Yachil, as opposed to the Mishnah. So that pshat doesn't really work. Elo said more rather like this. Both the Mishnah and the Brisa hold that the eating privilege is granted from Shammai. It's not considered an integral part of the worker's salary. And you're right. The owner, the father, the husband has no right to to force the worker to forego this right. It's min hashamayim. It's not a financial, zachus, a right that he has, that he can manipulate. We misunderstood the whole halacha. Says the Amar Rav Aisha says that, right? So you can't do that for the Ketanim because they don't have das. You have no right to go manipulate their deal. So when the Brisa says that you can do that for the Ketanim, umay koititz, the Amar Be'ishia, he meant mezonos. What he meant to say is like this: that the boss, the slave owner, can stipulate with the employer, look, please feed them ahead of time. Right? Feed them, cheap food ahead of time, so that when they get to the workplace, they're not going to snack off your expensive food. And in exchange for that deal, the employer will add a bit, is agreeing to add a bit to the salary. That's what he's doing. Ultimately, he's not depriving them. They're full. They're fully satisfied, right? So that's why it works. Ask some more. So likewise, right, in the case where he's doing the same thing to the animal, right, the Brisa says the animal owner cannot make this stipulation with the fellow who's renting his animal. Feed him, teven, right? Feed him hay ahead of time, so he doesn't take your expensive, whatever he's threshing there, the grain. Why not? The kabasega behemtai, correspondingly by the behema. Apparently, what he's doing is he's making an offer. Feed the animal teven. Why can't he do that? You can do that. That's fully fine. We learned in the Brisa. Remember the tzaddik. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to stuff the animal ahead of time. You're not depriving him. So this whole pshat doesn't work. You can't be speaking about this type of case because it won't work by the behema. It wouldn't be also. And the Brisa says it is, right? Oh, so ultimately we're sort of stuck in a corner. The only real way to explain, to reconcile the difference between the Mishnah and the Brisa, right? The Mishnah says that you cannot stipulate when it comes to your youngsters, your Eved and Shivcha Ketanim, and the Brisa says you could. Apparently, the Machlekes revolves around our very question. Those two approaches that we discussed way back. The Mar Sava Mishalei Oichel. The Brisa holds that when a fellow is eating off his job, it's Mishalei. It's part and parcel of his salary. It's incorporated into that deal. And since the owner here is the one that's getting the salary, so he has a right to stipulate and to substitute the food for an add-on in salary. Umar Savar, Mishal Shamayim Oichel, as opposed to the Mishnah, which says that it's coming from Hashem. So even if the Adain, the master, the Fellow is feeding them, he's supporting, he has no schus to interfere, to manipulate their snacking privileges. If they're ktanim and they're not able to be meichel and stand on their own and make a personal commitment to him, so they can't. You can't force them to do this. If they're gdolim, okay, that's up to them. But otherwise, you can't manipulate it. And therefore, when it comes to the evidence, shivcha ktanim, he has no right to interfere. So bottom line, we had a Mishnah. A poil can eat, to what extent? Up to his salary amount, even more than that. We had a Tanakam, a Rabbi Lezer, Chachamim. Then we had the interesting Shaila. The Achil of a poil, is it Mishaloi? Is it Mishal Shamayim? Ultimately, we concluded it's a machlekes between a Mishnah and a Brisa. All the best to you and Hatzlach.